Good afternoon. Welcome. My name is Father Eric Ramirez. I'm one of the Jesuit priests over at Regis Jesuit High School. I'm really glad to be with you this afternoon as we come to celebrate Teri, celebrate her presence amongst this wonderful, beautiful community, but also to be able to celebrate her family and the love that has been shared. You know, when we gather together in these moments after death, I often think about, I have thoughts. And so I often think about the nature and the place of love in friendships and families, the nature and place of love within communities. And I often think of love as manifesting and showing itself oftentimes in two different ways. I think the first way is simply those really joyful moments. Birthdays, anniversaries, great celebrations, graduations, those moments of really shiny kind of love, and everyone gathers together and we feel that warmth. I think about the other type of love that manifests itself, that shows itself in those harder, darker times, in those moments where there needs to be forgiveness, in those moments where there's hurt and pain and struggle, in those moments of death and grief. And honestly, I think it's in those times when love is best, when love is its most golden moment. You know, it feels good to be loved when things are going really great. I think it feels better to be loved when things are harder, when things aren't going so well, when we're in those moments of mourning. My hope this afternoon, and several people are going to come up to share memories, experiences, words, that in the mourning, in the grief, and in the sorrow, this might be a real chance, a real opportunity to experience again love. Love at its best moment, at its best place, at its greatest depth. I hope it's a time where we can experience love, maybe even taste that love. This gathering together of community, but more importantly, it's gathering together of community in shared memory, memories of Teri, memories of her presence and her compassion. I think in a real way, memories of the ways she has shown love. Love has this rippling effect as it goes out. It doesn't just pop out and it kind of explodes like a firecracker. That's not how love really works. I really do think love more is like those ripples in the pond. It just goes out and goes out and goes out. I imagine everyone here has been touched by Teri's love, and that ripple has touched you. And I hope we get to hear those experiences, those examples this afternoon, with the sure and certain hope and promise that love doesn't end, that as we're touched by that love extends outward, out of us. So as recipients of Teri's love, we share that love with other people as well. And with that, I hope we can begin this afternoon.
Everyone here has been a part of my mom's life, and Father Ramirez came to ours at the end, and I'm so grateful. Regis was a part of my mom, or was because of my mom. BPS, and so many other things have shaped who I am today. Tough times can bring you together or separate, and the way I've seen my family and friends come together to help has been amazing. The last few months, and really the last few years, have been really difficult. But this time has shown me not only what great family my wife my dad and my sister are, but what great people they are to support each other, and my mom. In a way, this memorial, I see as a way to say thank you to everyone who has supported my mom and my family, as well as a celebration of my mom. My notoriously bad memory will hopefully be reminded by all of you, but some things that were instilled in me by my mom that I will never forget. Things like skills in relationships and to talk things out, and especially the difficult ones. But my dad taught me perseverance and the love. So many great memories shared by everyone in Caring Bridge and in conversations. My mom dedicated much of her life to those that needed someone the most, from survivors of domestic abuse and refugees that were tortured, to her time in the Peace Corps and as a teacher. A comment from my cousin really hit me, from Gretchen. She said, "I remember her talking to me like I mattered." And I think we all felt that way when my mom talked to us, especially one-on-one.
So my name is Margaret, and I'm here to talk about Teri, the early days. We were 14 when we met, but it felt to me like I lost a childhood friend. Because we were both such good little Catholic girls, and we were so innocent and in our own protected bubble. It was a simpler time. Nobody was talking about mean girls or bullying, and social media wasn't poisoning anybody's mind. We hardly had any media in our town. So it was a quieter time, and I think the simplicity of it, also just our personalities together, we were so free to be silly and goofy, and just revel in all the dumb things we did together. She would repeat these things to me in birthday cards, so I know they meant a lot to her. It's like the hit parade of the dumb things we used to do, and it was so fun. But her favorite was, it was her idea. She was a very creative person, very productive. We were going to ride our bikes all over Grand Junction selling Christmas cards to people we knew, vaguely knew, didn't matter, vaguely knew. And I thought it was a great idea. I had no other way to make money. But I think it was my idea to go to the house of the reigning royalty queen bee of our high school, you know, the beautiful, popular girl. And I'm sure that was my idea. Because as we were walking up the sidewalk, she just said, "I can't do it, I can't do it." And I grabbed her by the arm and I said, "You can do this. They're just as good as we are." And when both of us realized what I had just said, we lost it. We fell to the grass. We were rolling around. We were holding our sides. And you know, you're losing your breath, and then another gale comes, and you're laughing at each other. I think we crawled back to our bikes, but I know we took out of there. I hope no one saw us. No one ever said anything about it. But then again, I'm thinking, would we have cared? Because colored tennis shoes were the fad back then, but we wanted to take it one step further. So we traded just one shoe, and we both went to school one day with, more than one day probably, with one blue shoe and one yellow shoe, because we had the same size foot. And you'd think, oh, well, that's cute. Were you like in the 3rd grade? But no, we were sophomores in high school. They were ready to trust us with the driver's license, right? And then she was with me the first day I went skiing. She'd had one lesson. That's cool. Teach me everything you know. It worked for me. So she got me up the rope tow. Now you have to kind of have a little finesse not to have the rope tow drag you. She got me up the rope toe, and then we were on the slope, and she got me in a stem Christie, if you know skiing. But then I'm starting to go downhill, and I'm screaming back at her, "How do you stop?" And she screams up at me, "Bend your knees." And I did, but I'm still headed for those people in the tow line. It wasn't working, and they're looking at me like, she's gonna stop, right? But no, and I was just, and finally they just kind of scooted to one side, and I just plowed into the big snowdrift behind them. So you gotta cover stopping and turning first. Maybe just do that first. Then we ended up on the chairlift together, brand new ski area the next year. We got on the chairlift. Neither one of us had ever been on a chairlift. This is real obvious. We got on, and about halfway up, I was thinking, and I think so was she, that it stopped to let you off. And about halfway up, it's very clear, this thing doesn't stop. And so we were so panicked. And I said, we're gonna have to pay attention to the people in front of us, which that's not really, they're not that visible. And really, we were not stellar skiers either. I mean, we could barely control our skis just normally. And to go down this, I mean, it was gonna be a deal. Well, we managed it. I managed it pretty well. I didn't fall. She fell. But the reason she fell, which she never let me forget, was because in my panic, I planted my ski pole right in front of her. So it's a good thing her butt wasn't stuck to the chair when it was starting to move away. She managed to get out, but you put your pole right in front of me. But then I didn't mean to do that. And I will say, and Teri brought me this memory just recently because I'd forgotten about it. She says, remember how annoyed I used to be because you were so fanatic about every tiny smudge on your glasses? You were constantly wanting to clean your glasses. And she said, and I told you, I'm gonna take you somewhere far away from water and soap. I'm gonna grab your glasses, I'm gonna fingerprint them all over. So, I mean, I know she seems like a saint, but you know, she had her moments. And in spite, our lives took, when we got out of high school, our lives took separate turns, and I would describe hers as this lovely, beautiful, golden straight line. She met this incredible partner, this love of her life, and mine looked more like, the path of my life looked more like a Jackson Pollock painting. But in spite of the changes that we went through, a beautiful thing stayed the same. Our view of the world and the world beyond it, it stayed the same. Our minds expanded, but they expanded in the same way. And we both ended up as flaming blue liberals, champions of social justice and inclusion and equality. We loved diversity. Love became our religion, and humanity became our family. But even better than that, we were believers in what other people might call magic or miracles or woo-woo. And I think the greatest joy and pleasure in our friendship was being able to share our experiences and feelings and thoughts on that mystical level. And on that note, I just have a message from Teri that, and I will tell you from my feeling of her, almost, even before I knew she was gone, it started, and I thought, wow, girl, you're not even gone yet, and you're already rocking it. But she was, and I didn't know that. But she was a great soul here. But she is like got the power of 10,000 suns over there. And she said, let everybody know I've got a gigantic toolbox now, and I have access to experts in every field. I have helpers over here you can't even imagine. I want to be involved. She said, you know, I said I never wanted to stop working when I was there, and that I love my work. Well, that's still true. I want to be involved. But the difference is you have to ask now. You know, there's no unsolicited advice or unsolicited help. You just have to ask. I wrote her a blank check, like, oh, girl, stay with me. And she's amazing. She's really amazing. She wants to be there. She's just full of power. The other thing she gave me, and I know this came from her because it made me laugh out loud. It's almost like one night we had a slumber party because she was so close. And she called these the Teri rules, and they did make me laugh out loud. You know, like, this was the Teri we knew. Number 1, think of 10 a.m. as my dawn. Number 2, don't try to rush me or hurry me along. Number 3, be ready to engage in lively conversation with bursts of inspiration and strong opinions. Number 4, be open to being loved deeply, fiercely, and forever. Just 4.
You are a tough act to follow, that's all I can say. You had wonderful stories. And I look around this room and I see so many people that have a Detroit street connection. And a lot of that has to do with the welcoming views, the welcoming atmosphere that Teri and Dan and others created. So we've all been positively impacted by Teri, but I just want to tell a little bit about our personal interaction with Teri. So at a pivotal time in our family's life, and I apologize, I'm going to read some of this because otherwise I won't get through it, but at a pivotal time in our family's life, when mid-'80s is what I'm thinking, so for quite a while ago, when our children were toddlers and our careers were incredibly demanding, we were blessed to come into this community on Detroit Street, and we were welcomed by Teri and others, but I specifically remember Teri, who lived across the street from us, and Dan, of course, being some of the first people to come greet us and welcome us to our new home. And I felt like we had really come home, that this was the place to be. And it only got better and better as we got to know other people on the block. I mean, there was just such a sense of caring about each other and of wanting to support each other as we tried to get our kids grown up in a way that we felt good about and have our careers go on track. So there was, I mean, my kids were over at Teri and Dan's house all the time. My daughter Rachel and Katie were inseparable so many times. And Teri was always happy to have them at their house. It just felt like so wonderful to have that support. And in my job, a lot of times I wasn't, or my husband too, we weren't able to get home at a particular time. And Teri would be there. Oh, I'll keep the kids, no problem. I mean, it was just this support system that I felt so strongly about that she gave us. And then there were just so many happy memories that come from thinking about being on each other's porches. I was just talking to Christy about that the front porches on that block made a difference. And we would spend so much time out on each other's porches talking, just having impromptu get-togethers as the kids ran around and played. We did Halloween parties, Easter egg hunts, birthday parties. I mean, just think of a time to celebrate. We were doing it on Detroit Street. And Teri was always at the center of those things. She always made you feel like you were welcome, that it was wonderful that you were there, and she was an organizer and so supportive of all of us. So anyway, we are just grateful, Steve and I, who's here with me, for the time our family had on Detroit Street with Teri and Dan and Katie and Brian. It just made a difference in my kids growing up, and it made a difference in how I approached the world and looked at the world, and Teri had an integral part of that. She was always there to lend a hand, a kind ear to listen. She would offer advice if I asked her what to do about this particular child-rearing issue or this particular stress that I had at work. I could always think I could go out and sit on her porch or in her backyard or go to her kitchen, and she'd be there for me. Luckily, even though we moved away, we've now been at a point where we have encountered each other again and renewed our friendship, whether it's at political events where we share the same political values, as someone said, very liberal blue political values, which was a wonderful thing to have and to recreate again. It's going to be hard because we're going to continue to see Dan and spend time with Dan, and I look forward to that. But I'm going to be missing Teri because she always was there. And you could just sense as you saw her, that she was going to ask you how you were doing. She was going to say, you know, what's going on in your life. She was going to give you a chance, and she would listen. She would listen. And I think that's something that's hard to find these days, someone who truly listens to what you have to say and will ask you the questions to get you to say what you need to say. So she's always going to have a very strong place in my heart, and I know the hearts of many of the rest of us.
Hi, everyone. My name is Maureen Doran. I'm a mental health nurse practitioner and friend of Teri's. I first met Teri at a PowerPoint presentation that I was giving to colleagues in our office building. My husband, Kip, and I had just returned from our Peace Corps experience in Botswana, Africa, after 2.5 years of service. I was new to the building and didn't know anyone. Little did I know that this tall, blonde, and expertly dressed woman who attended this presentation would turn out to be a fellow Peace Corps volunteer. Teri and Dan had served in Afghanistan in the 60s, and as is common with returning volunteers, we had an instant connection. I would work with Teri, at times referring patients to each other and sharing clinical dilemmas for the next 11 years. She was a dynamo, thorough, precise, most importantly, tremendously caring for all her patients who crossed her threshold. Teri, Dan, Kip, and I would meet for dinner in our favorite Thai restaurant and mull over the continuing problems in Afghanistan, God bless that country, and the issues of importance in Southern Africa and our experience in each of these far-off places. Teri and I would share our Irish histories. It turned out that my paternal grandfather and his 10 siblings were all products of County Cork, where Teri could trace her own family roots. Now, Dan, Teri loved you and her married name Lutz, but she reveled in her Irish history and the name Sullivan, I can tell you that. Lastly, Teri was my friend. When we knew that our offices were without patients, we would knock, enter, and settle down for a good gab. Teri was a strong woman, sure of her convictions, informed by her experiences, and respected by her colleagues. But as Teri would have said herself, her world revolved around her family. Dan, she was so very proud of you and your academic work, your leadership, training, and coaching with global leadership of business and education. She would do all she could to support your writing and research in this vital field of study. Katie and Brian, Kip and I feel like we know you from your devoted mom, who talked about your childhoods, your schooling, your interest, and now partners and families of your own. Your mom and dad traveled to your homeland in search of just you two. She loved you with a fierceness and depth that translated into an enormous pride. Even in her last days, she spoke of you both with a love that only a mother can hold. We all here wish you Godspeed, Teri, perhaps to your Irish homeland and the forebears who await you there. Thank you.
As has been said, today we honor and celebrate the life of Teri Sullivan Lutz. Teri's life can perhaps be described in one word: lived. Teri lived her life. She created meanings, purpose, and direction to mark her life by deep love and in connection to that which she valued. One important aspect of Teri's life was her penchant to ask questions and to seek truth. I am reminded today of the poet, Rainer Maria Rilke, who once said, "Live your questions now, and perhaps without even knowing it, you will live some distant day into the answers." This is my dearest friend Teri, a woman who lived her questions. I met her many years ago when we were young therapists in a postgraduate supervision group. I remember feeling immediately drawn to her. Her keen intellect, admittedly, was a bit intimidating. Teri's innate ability to perceive multiple layers of the human experience being lived by our clients helped us all in that group to live into the questions of our own humanity. As we tried to understand the complexities of the lives of our clients, Teri posed the questions that encouraged the understanding of a client's true lived experience. Rather than merely seeing them as a clinical diagnosis that needed treatment, Teri was much more interested in helping us all to live into the questions that mattered, thereby deepening the conversation towards a more vital understanding of a person's pain and vulnerability. Though Teri was quintessentially curious, she also honed the ability to live in the ambiguity that her questions often raised. Along the path of developing a professional relationship, Teri and I became the dearest of friends. As a friend, Teri taught me many things. She was the first person, however, to open my eyes to the nature of diversity, inclusion, and cultural sensitivity. Not buzzwords to Teri, rather deeply embedded principles by which she lived her life. She gently challenged me, imparted her wisdom, and lived by example the importance of these truths. As our friendship deepened, we encountered the inevitable bumps and bruises of a long and sustained connection. During these times, we stayed in contact, resolved our differences, and allowed for a soft landing of our friendship. Our shared history over many years was valuable to both of us and was worth preserving, no matter the misunderstanding or the difference. We had a tradition of celebrating our birthdays in the fall of each year. This year, the tentative date for this annual birthday celebration was September 1st. By then, Teri was in the hospital and perhaps beginning to live into the most profound question any of us will ever face. That birthday celebration did not occur as intended. However, as Teri's illness progressed, our friendship took a deep dive into the uncharted territory of an intimacy that was quite unexpected and nothing short of absolutely lovely. As the veil between this life, with all of its questions, gave way to a liminal space, a space beyond words and time, the questions surrounding Teri's transition from this material plane to another space, a space undefined, unknown, unrecognizable. She manifested her capacity in these days and continued to participate in the creation of a space able to hold the unexpected, to traverse the unknown, and ultimately live into her own death. She did so with great dignity and unspeakable courage. Teri lived into the enormity of questions surrounding the great unknown. Today, as we celebrate the gifts of Teri's life, perhaps we can emulate her in living our questions now and realize that even without knowing it, we too are living into that distant day
where our answers beckon. Dan, you and Teri shared a deep and abiding love. It's eternal love. Katie and Brian, your mother opened a space in her heart and soul, ready to love you before she had any idea who was coming. James and Jinju, your mother-in-law, lived into her deep intention to welcome you both as her own. Akio, Mila, and Caden, Teri's body, Nana's body, is no longer here. This is why we grieve. However, she lives on in all of you. She lives on in your hearts, just as she does for all of us whom she loved and who loved her.
Thank you guys all so much for coming. Okay. So, I wrote a letter to my mom, and I want to share that with you. Dear Mom, losing you feels surreal, and I still find myself in disbelief. Many people will recount your incredible accomplishments, adventures, and causes you championed. However, I want to share some of my cherished memories with you and the invaluable lessons and wisdom you imparted that I now plan to carry forward and pass on to my own children. Throughout our childhood, your care and concern were ever present. You wanted to make sure that we were at the right school for our learning, and you went to great lengths to find what kind of learners we were, even before that was really a thing. And through your research and gathering of information, you found Stanley for us. All those 35 years ago, you must have had a sense that Stanley was going to be a special place for our family, and here we are today. Your care stretched to our nutrition, always ensuring we got enough protein in the mornings, and making creative breakfasts like fried ham and cheese, chicken nuggets, the best homemade hash browns, and creative concoctions using leftovers. I will never forget the battle to get a microwave and your initial insistence that if we got one, we would need to keep it in the garage. Your dedication to our health knew no bounds, from seeking alternative doctors to acupuncturists all the way in Boulder. Your desire to protect and keep us in Boulder. Your desire to protect and keep us safe in high school led to our system of placing a baseball cap on the top of your bedside lamp, which was always a silent reassurance that we had made it home safely if you woke up in the middle of the night. As children, your worry seemed excessive, but as I've aged and become a parent myself, I've realized that all of it came from a place of unwavering love and care. Another thing you always valued was taking in the beauty of nature. One vivid memory I have from our acupuncture trips to Boulder is where you turned down the music as we crested the last hill and tell us to be quiet and take in that view. Much to my chagrin, I find myself doing the same thing with Caden and Mila and Akio now. They probably think I'm awfully silly, turning down the music and telling them to take in the view. But one day they'll get it. You always loved a good deal, and one of my favorite memories with you was going back to school shopping every year. We would get ready and head to the Cherry Creek Mall, coupons in hand, where we would hit all the sales at Macy's. We would then go to Cinnabon and split a Cinnabon to celebrate our victorious shopping trip. We would come home with our receipt to show Dad the amazing amount of money we had saved, and that basically Macy's had paid us to take all these clothes. This love of a deal is one that is fundamentally ingrained in me, and you will find me hard-pressed to pay full price for anything now. The other day, I was at Costco with Mila, and we found a 24-pack of Izzy's for $2.97. Mila exclaimed, "That's a great deal." On the way home, she looked up how much they were originally and calculated how much we had saved on the 4 cases we bought. And I couldn't help but smile at the fact that you would have been so proud. You always valued and cherished relationships. You had an extraordinary ability to connect with people, always asking questions and finding a way to better understand someone. We always joke that Denver was a big, small town. And growing up everywhere we went, you always were on the lookout for a familiar face or a new connection that could be made. I love how personal you made the world feel for us, by making us feel that everywhere we went, we could find some type of connection. You used to say that your mom would send you messages through license plates and numbers. As I journey through life, I'll be watching for the signs and messages you send. Your recent words, "I know something good will happen," keeps playing in my mind, and I realize you meant that for you and for us. I know wherever you are, something good is happening. I love and I miss you, Mom. I'll be watching for your signs.
Last night, a good friend and colleague of Teri's, Diane Heller, sent me a poem that she said she thought this is what Teri would be saying to you. And I agree. So I'm going to share this with you now. She would say, "I will not use my last breath to inventory my assets or to count my money. I will not use my last breath to speak of my accomplishments, should I have any. Nor will I use my last breath to ask why we are born, live so briefly, and then die, sometimes with suffering. With my last breath, I will call to my friends and gather them around me. Tell them how much I love them. And with my last breath, thank them for being a part of my life and enriching my soul." I've loved Teri for 53 years. Lots of time to learn and grow together, to challenge our relationship, to become more intimate through each challenge and phase of our lives. Lots of time. Not enough time. Not enough time to ever completely catch up to the depth of vitality, courage, and spirituality of my dear soulmate. Her ability to reach out, to love, and to support seem boundless, even to the point of her exhaustion. At the same time, she was bold with what she knew was true. There was always more to her. I cherish the big things in her that we shared, the things that she chose. The time I proposed to her in the San Bernardino Mountains, and she said yes. Then, about a month later, she said, "Wait a minute." There are some things we need to figure out. That set the tone of our relationship. Honesty, direction, working things out. Always growing together. Always loving each other more and more deeply because of that. I cherish the big things in her that she chose. Her choosing the most difficult and poorest school for her teaching experience when we taught in a steel mill suburb of Buffalo. Her choosing a rural elementary school at the foot of Afghanistan's Hindu Kush, the only trainee at that school for her later Peace Corps work, riding a half hour on her bicycle on rutted dirt roads and pathways alone in order to get to that school. I cherish the big things in her that she chose. Her choosing to become a psychotherapist, constantly working to improve her craft, helping clients through their dark and difficult times, giving each her all, refusing to stop up to the very last. But I cherish her for the countless little things, our constant conversations. Oh, guess who I ran into today? What do you think about this? Her readiness to hear my little things from the day, anytime during the day. I took that last too much for granted, and I already missed that the most. There were parts of her that each of you got to know, to see, to hear about. So you have stories of who she was beyond my own, beyond what you heard just now before me here. I hope at the reception you talk with people you know, meet people you don't know, and ask each other, how did you know Teri? What did you know about Teri? I love poetry. I love it because of its valiant attempt to express in words what words can never fully express, but can only point to something infinite. So I write poetry. I wrote poetry for Teri, understanding that my words could only inadequately flash a brief sense of my love for her. I'd like to share one of them with you. I wrote this for Valentine's Day a year ago, 2022. What if 1,000 words could be the worth of a picture? Would they tell the essence of the image's beauty, of the heart of its moment, and the fullness of its essence? But what is compressed in 3 words of a single moment, of the infinite string of moments, past building on past, crafting an ever-evolving present, beautiful, challenging, changing, growing, expanding the future in yet deeper intimacy. 1,000 pictures would never leave undone the yearning to convey how much I love you.
Check, check. I was not lucky enough to know Teri personally, but I feel so grateful to know her through all of you today. I've been talking with Katie about a song that she might like to hear. She and her dad and her family had compiled a list of some of her favorites, and I think one of her friends was saying this earlier, believing in magic. I saw this song on the list, and I felt a little whoosh go through me that I'm pretty sure was not me. I think it was probably Teri making friends with me and saying, oh, that's the one I want to send out and hear. So I will offer this to you, both sides now. Pray join me. Rows and flows of angel hair and ice cream castles in the air and feather canyons everywhere. I've looked at clouds that way, but now they only block the sun. They rain and snow on everyone. So many things I would have done, clouds got in my way. I've looked at clouds from both sides now, from up and down, and still somehow it's clouds, illusions I recall. I really don't know clouds at all. Moons and Junes and Ferris wheels, the dizzy dancing way you feel as every fairy tale comes real. I've looked at love that way, but now it's just another show. You leave them laughing when you go, and if you care, don't let them know. Don't give yourself away. I've looked at love from both sides now, from give and take, and still somehow it's love's illusions I recall. I really don't know love at all. Tears and fears and feeling proud to say I love you right out loud. Dreams and schemes and circus crowds. I've looked at life that way, but now old friends, they're acting strange. They shake their heads, they say I've changed. Well, something's lost, but something's gained in living every day. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I've looked at life from both sides now, from win and lose, and still somehow it's life's illusions I recall. I really don't know life at all.
Thank you truly to everyone who spoke this afternoon. If we could take just maybe a moment of just real quiet, allowing those stories, those memories, those sentiments just to kind of resonate with inside us a moment. Just taking a moment just to breathe. Allowing that presence of Teri to fill us. On behalf of the family, thank you for your presence. Oftentimes, words fail in moments like this, but simply the presence of another person right next to you fills in the gaps, surprisingly. Thank you for your presence this afternoon. We invite you to continue this celebration and the reception, to be amongst each other, to continue to share stories, to continue to share memories, continue to feel that experience of Teri's presence. We really do believe that love is stronger than death, period. Love is stronger than death. I hope at this reception this afternoon you continue to experience that strength of love, that power of love conquering over death. Thank you for your presence again, and have a good afternoon.